It is your Classic Metal Show right here on the ClassicMetalShow.com. You might recognize that voice from the Body Rock release. That is Lee Aaron with Rock the Hard Way. And for the first time on the Classic Metal Show, after 20 years, we finally got the one and only Lee Aaron on the Classic Metal Show. Welcome to the Classic Metal Show there, Lee.
Oh, that's crazy, eh? Where have you been all my life?
Yeah, well, we've been around, but you've been kind of, in and out with your career. So good reason to bring you on is the release of your latest album. I guess you want to call it album. Do we call it albums these days?
Well, yes, we do, because album does not necessarily mean...
record?
Record or vinyl or anything like that. It just means an album is like a collection, right?
There you go.
Work.
You're absolutely right. Well, you got this new album, Fire and Gasoline, and it's your first release in how many years?
It's my first official release since 2004. It's first studio album since 2004. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I know. It seems kind of like a lifetime, but at the same time, in other ways, it almost feels like a blip for me because... I became a parent in 2004. My daughter was born in June of that year, and then my son was born in January of 2006. And it's bizarre. Parenthood, man, your whole life becomes a blur for like a while, especially when your kids are little, because it's just so intense and so crazy. But some time and space opened up, and I always knew that I would make another rock record at some point. And so, in the last year or so, it definitely seemed like it was the right time.
Sure.
So here I am.
Well, isn't it strange that you talk about having your children, but now they're preteen?
Well, my daughter is turning 12 in June. I haven't gotten a lot of preteen behavior yet, knock on wood. But it's so bizarre. Like, seriously, this kid, like her dad is tall, right? So she's like almost as tall as me. I'm looking at her going, okay, like I remember when you were still, hanging off my hip. It's really bizarre how quickly the time goes. And, but I don't know what to say other than just every stage is great. Like I just love it. My kids are just amazing little people. And it was one of the best things I did in my whole life was having them, for sure.
Right. Well, one of the new singles that you've released off of your new release here is Tomboy, and you're featured in a music video, as it were. Does that feature your daughter?
It does feature my daughter. When we were looking at the sort of the time frame of doing that video, and also there was some logistics involved because half of my band here in Canada, half of them are from Toronto and half are from Vancouver. So we had a little bit of a logistics issue, and it just occurred to me one day, I thought, well, what would be more, what are the guys in my band going to do in a song like Tomboy anyway? It occurred to me that it might be really, really cool to actually have a backing band of tomboys, just for the video, just like sort of a concept thing. And my daughter goes to a fine arts school, so recruiting her little friends was not a problem. And I think because the song was written, like I said, for my daughter. It was meant as a song of empowerment. It was an individualism and, feeling free to march to your own beat and not be judged. These girls, they really latched on to the tune right away, and it really resonated with them. So they all learned the song for the first rehearsal, and then they came, and we put instruments in their hands, and I taught them how to fake it on the beat. This is what you need to look like when you're playing guitar, and they totally rose to the occasion. It was really, really super cool, actually.
Sure, absolutely. Well, let me ask you about, doing music videos today as opposed to, back in the day when you first, hit the commercial music scene. Obviously I'm not going to concentrate on the whole Metal Queen thing because I know that's just something that, is in the past. But, you came up in a time, the era of the MTV video. And, at times those things could be pretty elaborate and very costly. I've spoken with artists over the years to where they've spent up towards $500,000 or more on a music video. Now, I'm sure you didn't spend that kind of money on shooting a Tomboy video. I mean, I'm sure this is something you were probably able to do with a high def camera setup and some very simple props.
Well, it's not just videos. It's the whole music industry, obviously, that's changed. And that has come with a couple of, well, the advent of digital technology, right? Digital technology enables us these days to, well, I didn't do my record this way, but many people do albums where files are just sent back and forth by email and dumped into a studio so your guitar player can live in Japan, put down tracks and send them back to New York. Like, I mean, if that's what your configuration was, right? But that is not how I chose to do this record. I actually flew my guys out and we were in the same studio in real time playing live off the floor. But the days of going into big, huge recording studios and spending, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars, like my average album in the mid to late 80s cost about $250,000 a piece to record, because we'd go into the studio and just live in there for weeks making a record. But because there was a record industry to support it, you have to remember that. You know, people bought physical product. And digital technology has changed everything. You know, a lot of young people certainly do mostly downloads now. And there's so many more studios. You can record like in your basement with a laptop and get the kind of quality that you used to need to go into a large studio to get. So on this album, I blocked out about a week to go into a big studio because I did care about the idea of having the great outboard gear and the SSL console, being all able to play in the same room, looking at each other, working off each other, live off the floor. But when that was wrapped up, I took the bed tracks and the guitar overdubs, I took them into an alternate studio that was less expensive to record my vocal tracks, because you can these days, right? So, yeah, that's how it was done. And then, you know, in terms of video, you don't need to spend the kind of money that, they used to be quite elaborate, especially when we shot on film. The film alone could be in the thousands of dollars when you were shooting. But now, you know, it's so much easier with digital cameras and you know, a lot of the YouTube culture now is that I don't know that a lot of fans sometimes appreciate a video that is more simple and more candid and that appears that it's really real than these super glossy high production videos where it puts distance, I think, between the audience and the artist, if that makes any sense. So, yeah, you know, the idea with Tomboy, it didn't cost in the hundreds of thousands of dollars to do. No, it was, and it's mostly a performance video, and it was mostly supposed to be based on just sort of attitude and personality, if that makes any sense.
Sure, absolutely. So let me ask you, what's up with the Lisa Loeb look in the video?
Oh, well, I never even thought about Lisa Loeb. Yeah, she wore glasses, didn't she? No, those are just, well, those are just my glasses. So, and when we changed into the red shirts for the back half part of the shoot, and the kids were asking me to read something to them, so I had my glasses on, and then I forgot to take them off, and we were shooting, and that's just what ended up in the video. And I remember saying to the director, "Don't we have any more where I have my glasses off?" And he said, "Well, no, you forgot to take your glasses off for that whole back end scene, right?" And I'm like, "Oh," and I'm like, "Oh well, you know, it's real, so
sure.
Let's leave it."
Well, how would you describe your style these days, your music style? I mean, obviously, you know, people early on in your career, just due to the nature of the music releases, you know, classified you as, you know, in metal, and obviously you've branched off and done many other things, you know, in jazz and pop and, you know, whatnot. How would you describe this collection of songs?
That's a good question. I I can tell you how it was described to me by a couple of people, was not classic rock, but classy rock. You know, it's a straight up rock record, a straight up fun melodic rock record.
Okay.
With, I think really strong songwriting. You know, I'm a sucker for a good hook. You know, I love writing hooks. I love writing things that people can latch onto and embrace and sing along to. To me, that's, you know, I think that's a song craftsmanship. It's about becoming a better songwriter for me, and I'm always trying to challenge myself that way. So, to me, yeah, I think it was, you know, it's a melodic, straight up melodic rock record that takes you on a bit of a journey. It's not, they're not all sort of cookie cutter hard rock songs that sound like they're interchangeable back to back. Each song has its own, I think, identity. And growing up, for me, those were my favorite records.
Sure. Now, when did you start the process for, you know, writing the songs for this release? Was this in the works for a while, or did this get like knocked out in a matter of weeks or months, or you know, did you just have a collection of songs that you decided to work on? How did the process work for you?
Well, during my children's more formative years, I had been just doing like selected shows throughout mostly the summer seasons and festivals and things like handfuls of shows every year. And I'd written this song. I'd written a few songs actually, but "Bad Boyfriend" was one that the audience really liked, and so I'd had that song kicking around for about 5 years, and had kept it in my set as an encore tune. And to the point where, certainly in Canada, when I would play live, people would even ask me to play that song because they'd heard it at so many shows. But the balance of the album, when I geared up and I was ready to write a rock record, it really came together in a matter of months. I know that one duration of writing, I was up vacationing on a lake in the interior of BC, and I just took my acoustic guitar up there and I wrote "Tomboy," "Find the Love," and 50 Miles from Memphis in 1 week. So I banged a lot of them out fairly quickly. The reason I didn't pull a whole lot of songs forward that I had been working on is I just didn't feel that they were maybe an accurate reflection of where I was at right now today. So I wanted the songs to sort of embrace, you know, things that I'd been thinking about, themes and you know, reflections on the past and on, you know, my worldview of where I was at today. So really, it just came together in about a matter of months. I wrote 6 of the tracks on my own, and then Sean Kelly, my guitarist, and I wrote 5 tracks together for the disc.
Sure, absolutely. I've had Sean on the show when he was doing his Crash Kelly project. I've had him on the show a few times, so I know Sean, and he is a great guitarist, and you're very lucky to have crossed paths.
He's a great guy. Him and I met when because you know he's a writer as well, and he was authoring a book, Canadian music history book called Metal on Ice, and basically the book was to pay homage to all of the bands that he felt were very influential in the Canadian music scene in the mid to late 80s, myself included, that influenced him when he was, you know, a teenager learning to play guitar and getting involved in the music industry. So he and I connected over a sort of extensive interview that I did for the book, and we just got along really well, and we started sort of just communicating, and that led to a companion CD that went along with the album, and where he talked some of us into re-recording some of our old hits. And, you know, one thing led to another, and then I invited him to come and sit in as guitar player on a few of my shows, and that just went extraordinarily well. And then it was like, well, you should just join my band, and then maybe we should write some songs together. And so one thing led to another, and him and I got connected that way. And the cool thing, like I was mentioning about digital technology, some of the songs were written, you know, as simple as him sitting down with his iPhone memo feature and, you know, recording some acoustic guitar parts, riffs and things, and sending them off to me, and I'd go through them, and I'd go, well, you know, I really like that one, or I don't really like that one, but this one I think I can do something with. And then taking them down into my project studio here and completing the ideas on my own. And so that's how we were able to write Long Distance.
Sure, absolutely. Now, what is the story behind the title track and the title of this new CD, Fire and Gasoline? Does anything stand out for you? Any story behind that?
Well, the truth be known, the title of the album is obviously a song on the album, but we were really struggling with a title. And then Tom Tremuth at ILS Caroline, who was the gentleman who A&R'd this album and signed it for distribution, suggested Fire and Gasoline, and the reasoning behind it was, it says rock record. It doesn't take a lot of brain power to go, it sounds like a rock record, you know. And we were looking for a title that would also be able to resonate in different languages, like Swedish and German and Japanese, because the album, and also Spanish, because it's come out all over the world. We wanted a title that, again, said rock record universally, and he felt that Fire and Gasoline did that. And Fire and Gasoline, obviously, are two very combustible products when they're put together. And, you know, the album has a lot of fire and a lot of passion. One of the things that I like to write about that fascinates me is the strange nature of the human condition and what motivates us and makes us do the things we do, whether they are healthy things or unhealthy things. And, the track Fire and Gasoline is about a person trapped in a really destructive relationship, but they're also drawn to that really destructive relationship. So it's a double-edged sword, and I think that kind of often describes accurately how people are and how people behave, and so hence the title.
Sure, absolutely. Well, is there anything about this new release that stands out for you that you're particularly proud of, that you like to point out to the fans?
Oh, boy. All I can say is I think that of all the records I've ever done in my career, this one is probably the most pure in that it contains the most of me without outside influences. Even albums that I had done, like all the rock albums I did in the past, it was still mostly under the umbrella of a very large record label, and I had different producers come in that were very influential to some degree over the sound. I mean, you're just not going to do an album with Bob Ezrin, which I did in 1985, without having his stamp on it. Not that that's negative. He's a fantastic producer, and I learned a lot working with him. But, when you're working with someone of that caliber, your album is going to lean in a certain direction, influenced by the hand of that producer. And so I think of all the albums I've ever done, Fire and Gasoline is probably the most accurate reflection of me and who I am as an artist. So, and I'm excited about that. Sure,
absolutely. Now, in today's music, when you started out, or when you hit the scene, the popular scene as it is, there weren't a lot of rocking women, I guess you want to call it. I mean, obviously you had your Doro with Warlock at the time, and of course Joan Jett and Lita Ford was just coming up, and there weren't a ton of female vocalists or female rock artists. But now, here we are 30 some years later, and it seems like the whole landscape has changed. Is there anybody in the music field, female vocalist that stands out for you, or has caught your ear, or thought, man, that girl just wails?
I have to be honest and say I'm not so much attracted just to wailers, if that makes any sense.
Well, what I mean is that they have a certain thing that caught your ear. I mean, let me just rephrase the question. Is there who are today's female vocalists that catch your ear, or you particularly think that they're fantastic regardless if they're a screamer or a wailer or not?
Well, one artist that I particularly like is Courtney Barnett. She's from Australia. Are you familiar with her?
No, I am not.
Oh, okay. I've talked to a couple people, and they don't know who Courtney Barnett is. She just played Coachella. She is from Australia, and she is, I don't know how to describe her other than she's fantastic. She's introspective, she's political, she's cutting edge. She's not really a wailer, but I just admire her songwriting and her artistry so much because there's nobody like her. That's all I can say. There's nobody like Courtney Barnett. You got to check her out.
Okay, excellent. Very good. All right, Lee. Well, is there anything else about this new release or anything about yourself that you want to let fans know about that, maybe some upcoming shows or what your plans are for 2016 or what you intend on doing in support of this new CD aside from talking to the Classic Metal Show?
Well, I know that the plan at this point is the album came out at a very kind of an awkward time. It didn't really set us up for U.S. festivals for this summer, but I know that we are looking at the idea of coming down and trying to target some festivals in 2017 to support this release, and and hopefully that will bring us to the Chicago area because I've never played around there, and that would be fantastic.
Well, bring your life vest, bring your bulletproof Kevlar vest because there's plenty of fireworks going on here, if you know what I mean.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll have to remember that.
Yeah, you'll have to run for cover. But anyway. Well, Lee, it's been a pleasure to have you here on the Classic Metal Show after 20 years. And if you want to go see what Lee Aaron is up to, just go over there, check out her website over at leeaaron.com and go pick up her latest release called what, Lee?
The latest release is called Fire and Gasoline, and it's available at Amazon.com.
Perfect. All right.
Yeah.
Excellent, Lee. Well, go ahead.
Pleasure talking to you, Wendell.
Well, I appreciate it, Lee. So we always let the artist pick a closing song from the new release. And what should we play? And tell us a quick story about it.
What would I'm just thinking format-wise for your show. Would you prefer harder or?
Let's go with the hardest stuff you got.
Then I probably would pick the title track, Fire and Gasoline.
Sure.
Again, I told you, this song is about those crazy love relationships where we're damned if we do and damned if we don't. You know, the same things that drive you crazy keep you coming back.
Sure.
And Fire and Gasoline, by their very nature, are combustible.
All right.
This is Fire and Gasoline.
Well, like a moth drawn to a flame, here's some brand new Lee Aaron from the Fire and Gasoline release, and this is the title track exclusively here on your Classic Metal Show.